and the mental game will take care of itself. Oh no, you've been making mental errors from the first time you started working with that. Some of them are caused by mom and dad,
right?
Which I'm working on a book now for parents, which I hope will help parents that have kids in sports and have competitive children. But it is a very important part of the game early on. But we're ignoring it until thinking that all I have to do is get my swing down and I'm going to play great golf. And then when you get the swing down and you've solved a lot of the form issues, the mental issues really start to show up. And you say, oh my gosh, how long have I had this? Well, you've had it for a way a long time. But what if we can eliminate a lot of that early on in the formative years in a young person's mind? You don't want to wait until they're embedded. And it's much harder for us to teach people my age to do this than it is to teach somebody who's a freshman in high school.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you out there who haven't maybe heard the podcast or don't know Lanny's story, with winning in mind, it hands down, and I'm not just saying this because Lanny's here, this is the whole reason that I'm here in his office is he's been such an influence on me through this book long before I ever really knew who was behind the book, right? But the story was, as we alluded to a second ago, you went to the Munich Olympics in '72, rifle shooting, an incredibly hard mental sport, yeah, I would think. That does not get the respect that it deserves. It's extremely difficult. But also had a mental error, as we said, missed the gold, got the silver, came back and started looking for mental strategies, didn't find many things around that helped, and really started diving into the minds of those top performers out there, people who were winning the gold, the top 5% or so. And help me with the stats if I'm not correct here, but then you went on over the next 6 years or so, set 4 world records and 22 world championships or Olympic medals in there, and then finally got the gold in actually in '76. You got the gold in Montreal, I believe it was. So what was so crucial in those 4 years between having that mental misstep, coming back, seeking out some mental help? You identified it really quickly. I think a lot of guys would have gone back and just worked on form.
Right.
What was it that allowed you to know that, hey, it's not form, it's mental. I know it's mental, that's why I missed it. And then what happened over those years that really took you to so much success in that area?
Well, I knew it wasn't form because my practice scores were beating the best guy in the world, was my teammate. My practice scores were beating him. And so I knew that it wasn't form. And when I get in a tournament, you know, his scores were higher than mine. Wait a minute. What happened? The only thing left was the mental game. His mental game was stronger than mine. Now, I think most champions, even today, most champions, their mental game is really, I call them being unconscious competent. They can do it, but they can't really explain what they're doing. Now, that's okay if you happen to have that, but it's dangerous kind of position to be, because I having taught now for 40 years, and we just celebrated our 40th anniversary with our company, is that if you are unconscious competent, if you're one of these guys, that if you get 10% off center, you don't know how to get back. Because if you don't know why you're doing something, it's very difficult to correct it. And so what we do is we teach something that's a little bit unusual with mental coaching, is that most mental coaches, sports psychologists and people like that, books that I've read and people that I know, they're pretty good at telling you, here's what you need to do. But we think we need to go beyond that. We need to tell people, here's what you need to do, but here's how to do it, and here's why you're doing it. And so if you know those 3 things, then when you get in trouble, you know, well, maybe only 1% off center, I can get right back. And I know how to get back because I know why I got there. Now, one of the reasons why we're able to do that is because I've actually been there. I've made all the mistakes that I'm trying to teach people how to correct.
Right.
Like when I'm working on my book for parents, I suddenly realized as I started working through that, wait a minute, all these mistakes I'm trying to correct these parents, I've made all these. I didn't know back then when my kids were really young what I know now about how to apply this stuff. And so I just want to save parents and save my clients from having problems that the only reason they're having them is because they don't know what to do.
Yeah, and that's so important, so huge. I mean, especially for guys like us that are fathers. My kids are a little bit younger than yours,
Right.
but just so important that we need it earlier in the schools, and we need it earlier for the parents.
That's right.
So I know today, with where you are now, running your mental management strategy center here, you're working with Fortune 500 CEOs. You're working with a lot of Olympic athletes and world champion athletes and business executives and things like that. And obviously the book, as I said, has meant a lot to me. And there's a few pieces I pulled out of that, notably being your principles of mental management that you highlight in the book. And really not only just the principle, but then what do we do as a response to that? And I thought that was really helpful to go through back whenever I read the book a few years ago. I think your favorite one, as the book says, is principle number 7, the principle of reinforcement. Tell me a little bit about why that made the cut, the principle of reinforcement, but better yet, why is that one of all 7 your favorite, and what do we do about it?
Well, performance is a function of 3 mental processes: the conscious mind, what you think about; the subconscious, your skills; and your self-image, which makes you act like you. It's your attitudes and your habits. And the principle of reinforcement deals with that self-image portion. And most of the books that you might read, self-help books, are going to probably do a pretty good job of saying, hey, you got to think right, and you've got to have skills and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't really deal with the self-image, making you act like you, and what are your habits and attitudes. And that's really what the principle of reinforcement addresses. Your self-image grows and shrinks all the time based on imprinting. So every time you think about something, it creates an imprint in your self-image. So people don't realize that. Now, obviously, they know this, that when I hit a bad golf shot, my self-image tends to shrink. When I hit a good golf shot, my self-image tends to grow. That makes sense to them. But what they don't really realize is that's only one form of imprinting. Another form of imprinting is every time you think about something, it creates an imprint in your self-image. So even thinking about a bad shot causes your self-image to shrink. Thinking about a problem causes your self-image to shrink. Thinking about a solution to the problem causes your self-image to grow.
Right.
Thinking about what you want to have happen causes your self-image to grow. One of the things that I noticed when I started interviewing these Olympic champions that really shook me was that these guys are incredibly positive about everything that they do. And I'm thinking, well, why is that why is that so important? It's because their self-image is constantly growing. Because when they hit a bad shot, they don't beat themselves up over it. People in the middle of the leaderboard do that. What these people do is they say, what's the fix? What's the correction?
Sure.
So they're constantly thinking about the solution, not the problem, and their self-image continues to grow. If they hit a good shot, they praise themselves. Oh gosh, I like that. That's like me. They hit a bad shot. They think, well, how do I fix that? What's the solution? I'm going to think about the correction, and their self-image continues to grow. If you want your self-image to shrink, talk about what you did wrong. Tell other people what you did wrong. And we see this most often when you go to any sport, almost any sport. There's only one sport that I've ever coached that this isn't true about. If you go to a golf, for example, you go to a golf course, and guys are coming off the course, and you ask them, well, tell me, how'd you do? What do they talk about? What went right or what went wrong?
What went wrong?
They went wrong first. Well, that'll keep in the middle of the leaderboard.
Same as parents usually do with kids.
The top 5% don't do that. When mom and dad come home from work, and both of them work, most families, when they come home from work, they say, well, how was your day, dear? What do they talk about? What went right or what went wrong? Every time they think about what went wrong, or talk about what went wrong, or write about what went wrong, they're improving the probability that that's going to happen, because it becomes like them to make that happen. The top 5% don't complain. The top 5% think about what they want to have happen all the time and nothing else.
Wow.
Now that was amazing to me because I was beating myself up pretty bad all the time. And I realized that I got to stop that. And things started to turn around for me when I realized this principle. The more you think about, talk about, write about something happening, you improve the probability that thing will happen. So I decided that, okay, I'm going to be proactive about thinking about how I want things to turn out instead of thinking about, oh gosh, we need money. We're going to be in trouble. We can't pay our bills. Instead, you need to think this way. Gosh, I need to look for opportunities to make more. I need to see if I can make this work. I need to be more diligent in what I do. I need to make myself more valuable.
Sure.
All these things talk about what do you want to see happen? What could you start doing now that's solution based, and stop talking about the problem.
Yeah, and I often wonder why our minds are so quick to go straight to the negative, because
Well,
everybody does it except
I'll tell
maybe
you why. I'll tell you why. Because you are surrounded with people that do that. Now think about this from a success standpoint. Your competition out there, the people that you're surrounding with, they are making this mistake all the time. What if you didn't? What if you didn't? What if you were an exception? What if you says, you know, I just don't buy it. I'm not buying into that. Even though, because I promise you that the world is designed to keep you typical.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying typical is bad. I'm saying typical is so far beneath your potential. I mean, this is what I tell the kids, and what we tell the kids in our programs, is that you want to win. Well, what does winning mean? Winning is different for different people. But what my definition of winning is to perform at the top level of your potential. If you've got the potential to be very successfully financially, why would you want to be poor?
Right.
If you have the potential of being a great athlete, why would you want to be in the middle of the leaderboard? If you have the potential to do this, now potential is different for children and for people. However, there are certain principles that if you operate under those principles, well, one of them is if your self-image is always growing, you're much more likely to reach the top of your potential than if it's shrinking.
Sure.
And because you can actually do something about this just by the way that you deal with the environment, the kind of people that you hang around with, and what you choose to think about, talk about, and write about. You want to see some big differences? Go to the top 5%. They're all keeping journals. They're all keeping performance journals. They're writing down what they did right. They're writing down what they learned. People in the middle of the leaderboard aren't keeping journals. Too much work.
Right.
The top people are talking about their successes. Their self-image is growing all the time. People in the middle of the leaderboard talking about their failures. This is one of the most important things that transcends sport. It's like a life skill that if you can learn to constantly guard your self-image, you understand why self-image grows every time you're thinking about the solution. Self-image grows every time you're thinking about the problem. Self-image shrinks. Sometimes you have to think about the problem. I'm not saying you never think about the problem, but if you're thinking about the problem, get it over with it quick and move, change gears.
Sure.
Go to the solution and think about the solution. And when you do something well, the self-image needs two nutrients to grow. The first nutrient is you need confirmation from others. Other people need to tell you good job. So if you're at work and you're around a lot of people that are praising each other all the time, that's a healthy environment for self-image of everybody to grow. But the second nutrient is you need to praise yourself. And people are afraid to do that because they don't want to sound conceited when they're talking. But there's a way to talk about what you like about your life without becoming arrogant or without seeming to be arrogant.
Sure.
You can be confident without being cocky. And so this is what I see. I know a lot of humble Olympic gold medalists. They're extremely humble people. People ask me all the time and say, well, aren't most of these top 5% to do 95% of the winning, aren't most of them arrogant? No, I know a couple of arrogant Olympic gold medalists, and the percentage is about the same as the people who never won anything. There's arrogant people down there too. I said,
right.
that's not what causes a person. But I'll tell you what these people are. All 100% of them that are at the top 5% are confident. And you don't have to be cocky, but you do have to be confident.
Well, that's great. As we get ready to wrap up the video here, I'd love to hear just your perspective on pressure. I know that was a big part you had in the book. Pressure, is it friend, is it foe? How can we avoid pressure that we feel whenever we're competing? And, pressure is not something that you need to avoid, which was surprising that you said in the book it's something that you need to use to your advantage? Just kind of speak briefly on that before we wrap up.
Well,
here.
there's no question that pressure is not a problem. How you deal with it